If there's one thing we know about 2025, it is there is going to be some confusion. And what is something that can make people feel a little less confused when they get a little bit of data? So tomorrow we will be getting the PPI coming out in the morning, expected to come in around something like 0.3%, 0.3%. The previous was 0.4%. And we'll have to figure out how that is going for the time being. But we know that data is what people are going to pay attention to make them a little less confused when making a decision, because we have some updated daily expected moves, and these things are big. And tomorrow it is probably some of the biggest that I've seen for the Qs in a while. So let's just jump right into it. Now, before we get into the charts and give you those daily expected moves, obviously the red lines on your chart will be the daily expected moves. I first wanted to point out the SPY, and I wanted to point out just some potential levels to be paying attention to. We can notice that people are rather bearish going into tomorrow. And the first point we really need to pay attention to is that put wall at 580 for the SPY and a call wall at 593. Now, as we go back over to charts, now we can look at our certain levels here and pay attention to some key areas. We notice that level that we're first paying attention to, 580, is right below you. Right now we have put walls all around these type of levels, so we will be paying attention to it. But your daily expected moves for tomorrow, you do have 587.91 to the upside and 574.87 to the downside. This is going to be heavily dependent on the data. Like I said, the Qs showing some big implied volatility, the SPY showing some big implied volatility. Just the Qs have even more, pretty big there. So what we want to be paying attention to is the fact that, hey, well, down here we actually added our little signal line because we don't necessarily have the divergence on the MACD, but we do have a divergence on the RSI. And if we're going to read into this at all, it is saying there is a slight chance that we could end up with a 2-hour trend move to the upside, a 2-hour to curl up into possibly even positive territory, but that's going to take some work. You're going to have to hold up at higher levels for most of the day or be able to break through these levels with the PPI. Something that could be interesting is, are we just going to keep getting bad data? And we're going to talk about that as well. But I just want to let you know that there is a signal down here suggesting that this 2-hour could cross up. And you're noticing on that RSI, it's already kind of happening right there. So that's pretty interesting. You are holding the divergence point with this low over here too right now. This blip right here didn't work out, right? Complete failure. So if we get that upward move and it fails again, what should we expect? Well, a continuation of the overall negative trend. If that can actually go positive and we see strength, hey, what if the PPI comes out as good news and the CPI comes out as good news? That could project us higher, and that's why we are paying attention to the daily chart still being able to curl up. We did not have the reversal signals from the daily chart, so we're a little bit skeptical of this drop, even though it has confirmed weekly crash signals. We're paying attention to the risk of we could be wrong, right? That 1% chance, that 99% of you that's bearish, leave that 1% there, because it will make you open to things like this. And we are going to get into some serious things when it comes to Apple. Make sure you do have these daily expected moves on your chart. The 30-minute, what can we pay attention to for bearishness right away in the morning? Well, we can pay attention to the fact that, hey, this 30-minute is still in negative territory. That 2-hour has not confirmed up in any way. So if we do get bad news, that can easily put us down to a daily expected move, and we'll have to see if we make any kind of actual divergence on both of our indicators at the same time, because that would be a setup that I actually want to risk some money behind. So I'll be paying attention to this going forward. Now I just want to bounce right over to the Qs, do this a little bit quickly today, not the most time. I have baby girl's birthday coming up, so thank you guys so much. I know that I believe it was Richard, I'll shout you out in this video, okay, because you show up to all the live videos, and thank you so much for your gift to the baby girl. Thank you for the donation for her birthday. Really do appreciate that. For the Qs, 513.27 to the upside. That is fantastic. And then we get 497.85 to the downside. So we have an upside move, a downside move. What's going on with the Qs? Well, overall, we can see from the Qs some levels to pay attention to. 505, but 495 looks like the more concentrated area. To upside, we'd look at 525 for a potential call wall going into tomorrow. And yes, these are expirations for tomorrow, not the end of the week. So just be aware of that. As we look into the chart, though, it's looking very similar to the SPY, except you have one problem here for the Qs. You don't really have that divergence that you had on the SPY for the RSI. So I'd be paying attention to that, but there is something different we can pay attention to here. So let's talk about the bearish thing real quick, and then we'll get into a bullish thing. The bearish thing is this. Look at that MACD, still in negative territory. If that wants to, it can trickle up. We could open up at higher levels. This could go up a little bit and then cross back down. And that would mean that the negative trend is most likely to continue. If this is a rapid move up, we can see how we maybe want to build structure to head up over time. So we will be paying attention to those things. Make sure to join us for the live show. Okay, guys, join us for the live show so we can watch these stocks with you and get these levels on your chart for tomorrow, because the Qs have almost 30% implied volatility for options going into tomorrow. That is a lot. So I think there is some kind of big move, and that's why we're overall saying the confusing year is now, and it looks like people are going to use data to help with their confusion. As of right now, something I wanted to show you that's interesting on the MACD and separately interesting on the RSI. Well, this looking similar to the SPY, meaning that we are holding the divergence point here and here. We're not really holding this at this point. So there is still some weakening in momentum, but this could mean there is another push lower that is necessary for this to head in the upward direction. That 30-minute divergence not there. So we're really looking at this 2-hour. Very interesting if this 2-hour was able to turn up with some data, because the MACD is actually holding that divergence point just barely at this moment. So we will be paying attention to this, because these are signals. Even though they're very spread out, they can end up turning up daily charts if you get a few days worth of positive news, especially when it comes to PPI and CPI. So be watching out for how you can head up, how you can head down, and then you can just manage risk in any way. That's very, very important to do in an environment like this. You are getting a very volatile market. If you don't like how the market's been behaving, well, that course down in the description, the full technical analysis course, is still 90% off. You can literally learn how to trade markets like this with a lot more comfort by taking that course down in the description, the full technical analysis course. And it's only going to cost you $100. That's going away. That sale is going away until next year. So you'll have to wait a full 12 months before you can actually get that again. But something we're just waiting for tomorrow is just that data to come out, and then it looks like someone or a lot of people are going to make some big decisions with stocks, and we have to be aware of something. And I think it's great that people were pointing it out during the live show, so I'm just going to mention it at the end of the Qs here. Something very important going forward is you have one piece of data tomorrow, but that does not mean that CPI, if PPI comes out good or bad, that does not mean that the next piece of data can't be good. That does not mean the next piece of data can't be bad. Okay, we are going to be in a very volatile market, so be paying attention. And that means for me, I will be taking profit earlier if I decide to take any plays. As of right now, looking at things like Apple. So let's go get into that next. To start off Apple, I really wanted to show this for people who are still interested in learning more about weekly expected moves and why we really use them. As you can see, in these areas we were talking about this going down to 236.36. Now that level happens to be right in this area, but something very important, and I'm just going to show it off this week for Apple. The downside monthly expected move is right here. Notice that we tag that and we see support. And then you see how we're actually hitting the weekly expected move here, and we buy back up above the monthly expected move. Very important. This is really how these things can really help you when markets are really volatile, because this looks like it's just dropping, and you're going, where the heck is this thing going to hold up? We're paying attention to breakout areas, so that's great. It just happened to line up with our weekly expected move, but we are also paying attention to this level right in here. But you see how this actually gives you, with hard data, some actual levels to pay attention to and look at the reactions from these levels so far. So what we're paying attention to are some technical analysis in here with the 30-minute chart, right? We're looking at this at the 2-hour chart saying, hey, can that curl up at all? And we're looking at the 30-minute as that has hit a weekly expected move and a monthly expected move and going back into it. And we're going, what is it showing? Well, it's showing something very similar to the SPY, which is you are seeing the divergence here on the RSI, but you're not necessarily seeing that same divergence on the MACD. So this is saying to me that if we needed to, if we get bad data, we easily can end up going down for another test of that weekly expected move, maybe even cut below it a little bit. And then that's where we watch out for reversal signals. So that's how that's really a reason we like these expected moves, especially in more volatile markets, because it can seem like things are moving very quickly. But if you have those option levels, if you have those calculated levels, it can really help you. And that's what we give out on Patreon. So this is the main thing I'm looking for. Can the 30-minute get me with this tiny divergence down here? Can that turn up the 2-hour chart? Now, does this mean it's all said and done? No. If you can get a great move from PPI, hey, that would be fantastic. If you just see a sporadic move, and I'm drawing lines like this because you have serious implied volatility going into tomorrow for tech stocks. And what is Apple? It's a tech stock. So if this 2-hour curls up there, look at the positioning of the MACD. So we have to be aware of lower highs in case we need to build a stronger base, right? In case we need to build a stronger base, or just end up flushing through the floor. We want to be able to manage our risk. But this also could see a big move tomorrow. And if you get a big enough move to take you above the 5 and take you above the 9 right here on the 2-hour and the daily 5, we actually could see this push higher and end up making some kind of, I would have to say, a higher low. And this would really be a good way to actually build back for Apple. Now, the reason that we're talking about Apple being able to build back is because Apple is very good at giving daily topping signals, is very, very good at giving daily topping signals. And you do not have that at this point. You have a very strong move, and then you have that move that is now retesting the breakout area. That is what this is right here, the breakout area. So if we are able to curl up on this daily chart, we can end up in the positive direction. So what we're looking for here are we going to see continuation of these little negative trends on the shorter time frames, or are we going to see some kind of big reversal? Because data is what people are relying on to make themselves less confused. And all our job is to do is sit and watch and then react and then manage our risk. Tesla, so far so good, right? This is another one we were pointing out, no reversal signal. So be aware of the things going on here. And yeah, I still left the signal line on for this video, so we'll leave that on. We can talk about it more tomorrow if you'd like. I just like to have the signal line on, especially when I'm seeing things like Apple and other things that I need some kind of trigger. I need some kind of reason behind the trade. And that would be if this little line right here crosses through the signal line. Hey, that's sort of a bullish signal there. So we're paying attention to it. Now, does Tesla have a good probability to turn up this daily chart? We were talking about this today. We were talking about this the past few days. If we're really crashing, then Tesla's holding up really, really well for a crash. You haven't even confirmed the negative trend move down to take out this low. Look at the MACD down there. It has not crossed. So be paying attention to Tesla because this can see an upward move. Tesla is one of those stocks that is known to have anywhere from 60 to 100% implied volatility every single week. Every single week, it always has above 60%, and a lot of the time, it's usually around like 80 to 85%. So we're paying attention to it. As of right now, you're getting that rejection, which means what? If I go into an hourly, it's going to have these little curl downs in here, but mainly what I want to talk about was the 30-minute and how you're starting to see this MACD get closer and closer to the center line with every little curl up. So notice that you're getting all those 30-minute divergence in there, which means that 2-hour has a very good chance to reject. We even got a retest of the signal line for a brief moment right here, and then boom, to the upside. We were not able to confirm back down on the MACD or the RSI with the signal line. So that is fantastic work there. And now we're just seeing, hey, is this going to be enough to curl up the daily chart? What is the most likely thing for Tesla if it curls up on the daily chart? Hey, it could go test these highs and go make a new one. So we're paying attention to it. How would this overall fail at this point? The signal I would really be watching for is the main signal for a bigger drop, maybe down to 357.78. That's what I'd be paying attention to if this 2-hour can rotate down into negative territory. Now you know a little bit of the bullish stuff, a little bit of the bearish stuff, and all you have to do is wait for the data and maybe react tomorrow if your setup is there for you. Now, if you were paying attention to this weekend's video, Amazon is a big reason that I think this move is fishy, and this overall is really looking flaggy to me in some way on the bigger time frame. So I'm paying attention to it, and the big reason I'm paying attention to if that daily can make that upward move again is because of how these are looking. Look at the divergence here on your MACD, right? We can really draw this out for you and say, hey, that's slightly upward while the price action is down. What about on your RSI? Is that holding the divergence points? Well, we can see that it's above my white line. It's holding the divergence point and even a divergence point from the past. So back over in these areas. That's fantastic. Do we have a 30-minute signal in here that tells us, hey, is this trying to double bottom in some way or something like that? We do. We have the divergence as well. So you have all the makings here of a good base actually for Amazon. And if you get some good news tomorrow, you can see some upside. So just be ready to react, but also keep in mind you get CPI on Wednesday as well. And that doesn't have to follow PPI, right? If PPI comes in lower or higher, it doesn't mean CPI has to do exactly the same as PPI. So keep that in mind. But the reason we're talking about these type of things for Amazon is because Amazon's another stock that is once again looking very flaggy here. Testing the bottom of the Bollinger, fantastic. Not going all the way down to 213.52, which is something we were leaning towards. But I just want you to see this MACD. I mean, look at it. There's no reversal signal on the MACD. There's no reversal signal here. If not, you want to call that flat, okay? There is flatness on the RSI. We'll say that. And that's caused some turbulence. But if these things start to cross back up, where are they? Positive territory. So be ready to react. I do not want people to really lose focus here. You are a trader. That means you look for signals in both ways and you're ready to react. So if these signals start to prove to upside, right? If these dailies start to curl up into positive territory, if you start to see 2-hour divergences, then be ready to react. It does not mean that this has to play out, right? This easily could be bad news tomorrow. The 30-minute drops back down and all these signals are gone, but you had no reason to react because that 2-hour never confirmed up. So if the 30-minute was to cross down here, I think you're pretty much beelining for 213.52 for Amazon. NVIDIA is one that on the 30-minute does not have any real reversal signals. You're getting a lot of these end of day or middle day bounces into a big drop in the morning, and middle day bounces into a big drop in the morning, middle day bounces, ooh, looking very flaggy here. So we will see if that negative trend can continue. This will be highly dependent on the data at this point. You see that the 2-hour is still within range of going positive, but you still want to be aware of a lower high. And this is going to be a great stock to watch for CPI, because if we get that upward move and we just see like two, 3 bars like this, and then you see some little 30-minute weakness, 15-minute weakness in here, and then tomorrow you see that drop, it means, hey, that drop can be pretty significant, and maybe you need to make a stronger base down here at the low. So we'll pay attention to it. And you don't have to make that stronger base, right? That's just something we react to. If that curls down, if we curl up and then curl back down, where are you? Close to the center line? Hey, that overall just means we're continuing the negative trend, which means it doesn't have to turn around. And if we start to lose 127, if we start to lose 125 especially, then this is really bad for NVIDIA because it has confirmed down on daily charts. Let's show that off real quick. We have confirmed down on daily charts. Now that is a green bar and it is overall negative though. So this is saying, the daily chart is saying, hey, we're still sick here. So even if we get a bounce, watch out for a lower high. But on the other side of things, Meta, and we've seen blips before from NVIDIA, so just be paying attention, okay? But Meta here, not able to curl down. Originally, this was curled down at some point, but what did we overall say about Meta? Well, Meta here did show some potential for a lower high, so we're paying attention to it. But overall, what are we thinking? Hey, if we can get a solid daily close above 617.82, we think you might see a little bullish run there. If you start to close below 598.41 on the daily scale, you might actually cut through this low and go make a new one. So we're paying attention because you're overall stuck between our two lines, right? Stuck between our two lines, which would be considered right now resistance and support. And we're paying attention to these. But the best part about things like Meta is I can just sit, I can look where the weekly expected moves are and see where those are getting tagged and see if any kind of setup is there for me. Or if I have a weekly expected move, say up in here, and then I break that upside, where are we likely to go to? Well, that weekly expected move. So that's how they are very, very helpful. I encourage you to give them a try for at least 1 month and see how you like them on your charts and see if they add anything positive to your trading, because it works for any trading strategy. It's just something very, very cool to have, is a level, that a range that really has a 68% chance to land in every single week. And the thing is, 75% of the time, you will be tagging one of those weekly expected moves throughout the week, which is very, very cool. You guys know I'm paying attention to Microsoft, and you guys know exactly why. Now, Microsoft on the daily scale, first of all, let's talk about the signals. First of all, the daily scale does not have divergence. That's huge. Still, you're within range of seeing a positive move. That's huge, but it is negative, so we're aware of lower highs. But what do we see at these lows, and what were we trying to talk about? A possible double bottom over the weekend is what we were talking about. And look at this 2-hour chart setting something up for you. If you get back-to-back days of good news here, Microsoft can see a solid move, maybe to take you out of that zone, retest in that zone, and make a move higher. The only problem with something like this is, one, the 30-minute is still negative. If that just rolls down, it's not a good sign. You're not really having any divergence down there. I don't believe you have any on the MACD as well, so that's fine. You just want to pay attention if that turns down for your risk. But the daily chart here, if you're going to end up seeing that upside move, the positioning of the MACD would say if you see weakness in that move at all, just be watching out, because that could be just some kind of lower high at this point for Microsoft. But I really like that double bottom at this moment, and that could project you higher to actually go test all the way up towards 445 to 447. AMC, just a terrible day. Now, something with AMC that I think I'm reading into a little bit here. Obviously, the level you need to break through to see something crazy, 425. What I'm reading into for AMC is if they really want to fill this gap before anything happens. I actually am reading into that, because before it actually saw the big moment on daily charts, yeah, it had a look like this, and then it moved to the upside. That has failed, and something that I'm interested in is, are they going to push this down to lower levels to possibly get out of positions, and then we see something crazy? Because when we look at GME, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good, but we've confirmed a reversal signal, which means to me, I can't really see AMC going very positive if GME is confirming this signal right here, right? We were waiting for something like this to happen. You have gotten a negative bar to close below the 5-day and below the 9 on the daily here. So that's a big deal, because you're starting to confirm divergence, and that's bad. That means that this has a high likelihood to go test something like 28.35. Actually, this is saying this has a high likelihood to actually go negative here. So we're paying attention to the fact that this could end up breaking down actually, and that's just something interesting. Now, there are ways for that to go away, right? We see blips all the time, and that's why we learn how to manage our trades. So what would cause me to manage a trade? Say if I was shorting the stock, I never short GameStop or AMC. That's not how I do things. But one thing I'd be paying attention to is if the 2-hour rotates back up, right? It's overall still holding up really, really well, and that floor keeps getting raised. You haven't seen a new low that is taking you below the previous one, so that's very important. You still have the series of higher highs. That's pretty important. But something that I'd pay attention to is if this 2-hour can turn up, we might get rid of that daily signal, so I would be watching out for that. If you want to see something crazy, well, you got to get through 36.35 this week for GameStop. Volatility, we were paying attention to this because it did break out of the downward trend line, and it's giving it all up and closing at the low of the day. So some people are taking some bets before the information comes out tomorrow, and I wonder if those people have some insider information. We'll find out tomorrow if any of these things are going to play out. As of right now, we do see that the 2-hour chart is confirming down. Now, what we want to pay attention to for this will be very, very good for PPI and CPI, because if PPI actually comes out as good news, you can see a move from volatility all the way down to something like 1683, all the way down to our trend line here, right? It can be a pretty big move. So we're paying attention to if that can drop down and then curl back up into positive territory, maybe with CPI. This is still in an overall positive trend, and this could just be a few hours of dipping down, and then we have to find out what happens with CPI later on. So if that is going to pile on, if we're just going to see PPI come out as bullish for the market and then CPI actually come out as bullish for the market as well, we could see little bounces in here, but those would fail and the daily chart would start to roll over. If the daily chart rolls over at this point, you are making a high, a lower high, a low, and if you go make a lower low, you're probably going to end up at all-time highs in this market, so be paying attention. Now, towards the end of this video, we'd like to give a main takeaway. My main takeaway is this right now. I am very aware that weekly crash signals have confirmed. We have confirmed some serious divergence on the weekly scale for the SPY, serious divergence for the Qs. But we are seeing some forms of reversal signals, and we're seeing stocks like Amazon hold up really, really well. And we're noticing that the daily never had the topping out signals that we normally see. So we're aware that something about this is fishy. And at the same time I'm talking about that, you can go look at the dollar starting to drop off at this moment on the daily scale here in the next hour and a half. You will have the dollar actually closing negative, which is something we were looking for. You can go look at the weekend video. I said, I'm going to be paying attention to if the dollar actually starts to head down while stocks are lower. Right now, the dollar is starting to head down. We did see a little bit of buying pressure, but overall the Qs ended up negative. So we are paying attention to a lot. And what we want to say is, hey, the crash signal is there, but we trade both ways. So even if this type of move made me super, super bearish, which I think we're holding up very well for this to be considered super bearish at this point, I think we have a good chance to make that upward move, which means we're just paying attention to if I'm short on the weekly, if the daily turns up into positive territory, that would say manage the trade, right? These are all things that we talk about in the course, just on the weekly and the daily scale. So be paying attention to it. We can still end up at all-time highs is the weirdest thing to say after all of this craziness has happened. We still are holding some reversal signals out there. So let's pay attention. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you for liking, subscribing. You guys are fantastic. I appreciate it so much for you being a part of this community, and I look forward to streaming with you in the morning. So please subscribe and join us in the morning and throw out a ticker for me. If you're new, say, hey, I'm new here. Will you look at a stock for me? And I'll give it a look for you. All right. Have a great night. And I hope you guys have all the luck in the world with your trades tomorrow, all right? Peace out.